Hi, my name is Dzameer Dzulkifli, and today I'll be reading out a book entitled Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls 100 Tales of Extraordinary Women. Uh, this is done by Elena Favilli and Francesco Cavallo. Um, and I chose this book because it's an inspiration of my mom, my wife, and also for my daughter. And yesterday, my son was also born. So I hope he goes on to be inspired by his mom and his sister about the inherent power of women and how they have to fight against various forms of oppression. It's illustrated by a number of artists, and because there's 100 stories, I'm only going to pick two to begin with, right? Um, the first one is Eufrosina Cruz, an activist and politician. Once there was a girl who didn't want to make tortillas. When her father told her that women can only make tortillas and children, she burst into tears, promised to show him that it wasn't true. You can leave this house, but don't expect a single cent from me, he told her. Eufrosina started out by selling chewing gum and fruit on the street to pay for her studies. She got a degree in accounting and came back home with a job as a teacher. She started to teach young indigenous girls like herself so they could also find the strength and resources to build their own lives. One day, she decided to run for mayor of her town. She won many votes, but despite that, the townsmen cancelled the election. A woman as mayor? Don't be ridiculous, they said. Furious, Eufrosina started to work even harder. She founded an organization called Quego to help indigenous women fight for their rights. Their symbol was a white lily. Wherever I go, I take this flower to remind me and the people that indigenous women are exactly like that: natural, beautiful, and resilient, Eufrosina said. A few years later, Eufrosina became the first indigenous woman to be elected president of the state congress. When the First Lady of Mexico came to visit, Eufrosina walked arm in arm with her in front of the local population. She showed her father and the whole world that there is nothing that the strong indigenous women of Mexico cannot do. Born January 1st, 1979, in Mexico. And there's a quote here which says, when a woman decides to change, everything changes around her. So this is a powerful and inspiring story to take on oppression in the form of like government and winning elections to represent the people's voice. Right. A second story I have is of Claudia Rugorini. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Um, and so she's a partisan. One day there was a girl who had to change her name. Hey Marissa, her friends would call out. Nobody could know that her real name was Claudia. It was too dangerous. Claudia lived in a time when Italy was ruled by a tyrannical man called Benito Mussolini. During Mussolini's dictatorship, you couldn't read certain books, you couldn't watch certain movies, you couldn't express your opinion, and you couldn't vote. Claudia believed in freedom, decided to fight this man with all her strength, so she joined a group of partisans, partigiani in Italian, to help bring down the dictator. Claudia's group was made of young university students. They would meet in secret after class to bring out their own newspaper. But how could they spread their message with Mussolini's police everywhere? Claudia was incredibly brave. She cycled around delivering newspapers and messages from one secret location to another for almost 2 years. One day, the regime finally collapsed. The national radio announced that Italy was free from fascism, and people flooded onto the streets to celebrate. Claudia, or Marissa, had one last task. With a small group of partisans, she entered the offices of Italy's national newspaper, Il Corriere della Sera, and officially liberated it from censorship after 20 years. Finally, they were free to print the truth, and Claudia's friends could call her by her real name at last. Born sometime in February 1922 and passed away on 4th of July 2016 in Italy. This is an illustration of Claudia and a quote here that says, "Stronger than fear is the desire to fight for freedom." And I want to say that reading is important for all the girls and boys out there that want to fight for freedom and independence from oppression. Thank you.